Hi, I'm Miss Jackie with Botetourt County Libraries. In this, our third BoCo History Detectives video, we're going to investigate young Botetourt County families who lived during a turbulent time in history. We'll discover how events that happened halfway around the world forever changed lives right here in our county. The people in our story, like people everywhere in every age, experienced fear and courage, meanness and kindness, sorrow and joy, hatred and love. My investigation revealed that when faced with hardships, they chose to be courageous, hopeful, loving, and kind. To investigate their stories, I read books we have here in the library and did Google searches to learn about what was happening here and around the world during their lifetimes. Using Ancestry.com, I examined census records, marriage, birth, death records, and military records, and more. But what if you don't have access to the internet or those records? In a little while, I'll explain the most important resource I used. You have access to this resource too. You can use it anytime, anywhere, to learn your own family stories and to record eyewitness accounts of the history-making events of our time. Those accounts may just help future history detectives understand how the events of our time have affected us and changed our lives. Are you ready? Let's get started. This story begins in Buchanan with the Flippo family. In his book, Buchanan, Virginia, Gateway to the Southwest, Harry Fulwiler Jr. tells us that George and Lucinda Flippo came to Buchanan during the construction of the James River and Kanawha Canal. George worked on the construction of the canal and later operated a livery stable. He and his sons delivered mail by horseback from Buchanan to Covington and points in between. The family also owned a farm near Buchanan. Mr. Fulwiler wrote that one of George and Lucinda's sons, Henry, and his wife Sally, later operated a farm of their own near Buchanan. The family worked together and their farm was successful. One son, John Lawrence Flippo, born in 1895, was working on his family's farm when he fell in love. On April 5, 1918, when he was 23 years old, John Lawrence married his sweetheart, pretty Sally King. Sally grew up with her parents, William Jasper and Virginia, and lots of brothers and sisters in the community of Oriskany in northwest Botetourt County. In the spring of 1918, when John Lawrence and Sally married, the world was at war and had been since 1914. On May 7, 1915, a German torpedo sank the British luxury ship Lusitania. Many civilians, including Americans, lost their lives. That set off a chain of events, including Germany's sinking of U.S. supply ships, that eventually led U.S. President Woodrow Wilson to declare war on Germany on April 6, 1917. When the United States joined the Allies and entered World War I, our country had a little over 127,000 volunteer soldiers and sailors. That sounds like a lot, but it was not enough for the war effort. More men were needed to strengthen the military. In May 1917, the U.S. passed the Selective Service Act and began registering young men between the ages of 21 and 31 for the draft. The draft, or conscription, is when a country compels its citizens to serve for a while in the military. By the end of the war, 4.8 million Americans had served in the military, with 2.8 million of them having been drafted. John Lawrence, like millions of other young men in America, registered for the draft on June 5, 1917. You can see that he listed his occupation as farmer and that he was worried about being unable to help his family harvest the crops. the Army in the summer of 1918, just 3 months after he and Sally were married. Enlisted men usually traveled by train to a camp or a fort for training. John Lawrence was assigned to Camp Upton near Yaphank, Long Island, New York. There he trained beside other young soldiers, preparing to fight in Europe. He probably wrote letters home, or he may have sent cards like these home to his new bride, telling her about his training and life at Camp Upton. After training, servicemen traveled by transport ship to Europe to join the fight. John Lawrence was scheduled to depart on September 25, 1918, on the USS George Washington. At the same time, a war of a different kind was raging across America and around the world. Scientists don't know for certain where the influenza pandemic of 1918 started, but it was detected at Camp Funston in Kansas in March of that year. Just like the virus of today, the flu virus in 1918 was very contagious and spread quickly. Soldiers were moving in large groups across the country and around the world because of the war. Some scientists believe that was one cause for the quick spread of the flu in 1918. In mid-September, an outbreak of the flu hit Camp Upton. By the end of that month, more than 3,000 people were infected. On October 3, 1918, John Lawrence Flippo died of influenza. His body was brought home to his grieving family in Buchanan. He is buried in Fairview Cemetery. The world for John Lawrence's family was forever changed. His young bride, Sally, had lost her beloved husband after only 6 months of marriage. We can only imagine her sadness and overwhelming grief. A few months later, just 3 days before Valentine's Day, on February 11, 1919, Sally's life changed again when she gave birth to her baby boy. She named him after his father, John Lawrence Flippo, Jr. On the 1920 census, we can see that Sally and her baby boy were living with her family in Oriskany. Until 1920, women in our country were not allowed to vote or do many other things we take for granted today. It was uncommon in the 1920s and 30s for a woman to own a car and to drive, to buy her own home, and to live independently. But Sally was independent, smart, and determined. She bought a house across the road from King Memorial Church, and as a single parent, raised her son, nicknamed Flip. Flip grew up surrounded by the love of his family near his grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. Our story shifts now to another family living in neighboring Craig County. William Charlton and Virginia Crisp married in October 1879. They raised their 3 boys and 2 girls on a farm near Camp on Craig. When grown, the girls stayed close to home. Grace became a teacher and lived near Fincastle. Effie remained in the Oriskany area. The 3 boys, seeking adventure and opportunity, went in different directions, one to Florida, one to California, and one, Everett, to Washington. Everett didn't stay in Washington long. A cousin stopped to see him one day and invited him to come along on a great adventure. He was on his way to Alaska to help survey the border between Canada and the Alaska Territory. There were no paved roads, no hotels, and no phones along the 141st Meridian where the survey work was to be done. It was still a wild and remote land. The work would surely be dangerous and exhausting. The men who would do this job would have to be tough, reliable, and willing to work long hours in harsh conditions. Everett left for Alaska in 1905 at the age of 20. Years passed. Everett's parents had died, so he came back to Craig County to help his brothers and sisters settle their parents' estate. The family decided to hold an auction. Auctions were fun. They still are. People came from far and near to socialize and to find treasures. They saw old friends and met new ones. Everett saw friends he hadn't seen in years and met a lot of new people that day. Among them was Sally Flippo. He must have been very impressed by this good-natured, resilient young woman. They apparently enjoyed each other's company because when Everett returned to Alaska, he and Sally wrote letters to each other. They talked about what was going on in their lives and the world. They shared their thoughts, their plans, their dreams, and their feelings. They became friends. Time passed. Flip was a teenager now, and Sally knew that her son would soon follow his own dreams. So one day in 1934, she made a decision that would change her world forever. She drove down the mountain from Oriskany to the train station in Eagle Rock. The train arrived, but Sally didn't get on board. She watched and waited as passengers stepped off the train. Her wait ended when her tall, smiling friend stepped onto the platform. Everett Ewell Charlton was home for good after 29 years. Sally and Everett married on June 2nd, 1934. They, along with Flip, lived in their home in Oriskany. In a few years' time, Flip would have two new brothers, Don and Pat. When they became adults, Flip, Don, and Pat married and had families of their own, giving Sally and Everett a whole new generation to love. Sally lived to be 102 years old. On her 100th birthday, stories written about her in the Fincastle Herald and the Roanoke Times provided a glimpse into her personality and her spirit. As I said earlier, I found clues about these families by using the internet and books in the library. Those sources gave me the facts about their lives. But facts don't always reveal the personality or character of people we investigate. To find clues about those traits, I needed to hear from people who actually knew them. In this Roanoke Times article, Flip's wife, Janie, told the writer Beth Macy about her loving mother-in-law and all that she'd learned from Sally. I talked with Flip and Mary Jane's son, Mark, and Sally and Everett's son, Don. They shared memories and told me stories about their family that I would never find online. Mark said that Everett was tough as nails with a heart of gold. Don described his mother Sally as ahead of her time and kind to the extreme. He told me that Sally and Everett provided rooms and meals for the school teacher or anyone else who needed a place to stay, and that most Sundays after church, the pastor would make his way to their home for lunch. We not only fed the preacher, but set a large table for anyone who dropped in. There was always someone visiting us on Sundays, Don said. As you can see in this article, Sally was always a caregiver. When she was in her late 80s, Sally took care of a woman who was 10 years younger than herself. When she was in her 90s, she asked her son Don to find her some more old ladies to take care of. Sally and Everett had a long life together. They're buried in Allegheny Memorial Park in Lowmore. This isn't the end of the story, of course. There are so many questions still unanswered, so many stories to tell. Far too many for one video. We'll have to come back to those questions and stories another day. I said earlier that I would tell you about a resource that you can use to learn your family's history mysteries without the internet, books, or records. That resource? Your own family members. Begin with the oldest person in your family. Ask them to tell you about their life and about their parents' lives. Remember the 5 W's of investigation we talked about in our last video? Ask, who were your parents? When were your parents born? What kinds of jobs did they have? What kind of jobs did you have? Where did you live while growing up? Why did you live, go to school, and work where you did? Those are just a few of the questions you might ask. Then listen. Listen as they tell you about their life. You are certain to hear about people and events that will spark your curiosity and make you want to know more about them and the world they lived in. Remember, their story is part of your story. Record your interviews. You can write down the stories they tell you, collecting them in a journal or a scrapbook, or use your phone or tablet to make a video or voice recording. Make this a family project. Remember, the library is here to help. A branch of the Botetourt County Libraries and ask for a BoCo History Detective Kit. Inside, you'll find a journal page that you can use to begin your story, along with helpful interview questions and tips to get you started recording your family's stories. Or visit the library's website, click on the BoCo History Detective page, and download the journal and interview pages. And here's something you'll love. While you're on the library's website, follow the links found under Local History to use Ancestry.com from home. Free access has been extended through March 2021. Learning about past events through the spoken word of people who've lived through those events is called oral history. History comes to life for children when they understand how those events impacted the people they know and love. Oral history projects are a great opportunity for family learning. Through actively listening and recording what they've learned, children develop and hone skills in research, critical thinking, and writing. To learn more about World War I, the pandemic of 1918, or how oral history projects benefit children, click on the Show More tab under this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the Botetourt County Library's YouTube channel so you'll know when it's time for the next episode of BoCo History Detectives. Thanks for watching.